When I first started, I used to combine realistic stuff with abstraction because I was so overwhelmed with moving to New York City and all this movement and sound and everything. As I'd be walking down the street and I'd be looking at like the person walking ahead of me, and at that moment I'd realize all this movement and sound and stuff was kind of peripheral and non-specific. So I started to combine that realistic person's back with this abstraction of movement and sound and things. I was like, that's what a baby is like. When a baby first comes out, they're not categorizing any of that empirical input yet. They don't see this as a hand, they just see it as a shape. So I was kind of interested in that kind of perception of things. A priori perception versus, empirical perception. Perception of realistic things and perception of abstraction things are kind of the same thing. They're marks on a piece of paper. Watch this. You're in this abstract world, and all of a sudden it's realistic. I'm Brent Richardson. I make paintings and drawings. I moved to New York City in the early 80s from Southern California and Northern California. I moved out here to Montauk about 5 years ago. My paintings and drawings used to be very dense. Like I'd fill up every square inch with linear movement, abstraction and things. And then I started letting them breathe. I started putting space in there so you had time to compare, contrast. You could step back and see specific movement and things. And this is all like super dense abstraction. I started miss realism and putting some sense of place in there. So I started putting horizons in there. Just all of a sudden the abstraction had a place to go, a volume that would cast a shadow or something, maybe even appear sculptural. After I moved out here, every night, every day, I see this ocean horizon, so they all started to come into the work as something specific, something realistic to compare with the abstraction. I'm fascinated with a curved line showing movement. When two curved lines come together, it's like an acceleration. It's almost like a cartoon thing. Like, for example, if I did this, that means it's moving, right? If I did this, it's moving really fast. So they're all about linear movement. They're all about objects that are familiar but not quite tangible. It implies something. You have a feeling of something familiar, but then I pull back so it's not specific. I like the ambiguity of it. So there are organic shapes that you see in nature, or whatever. You could say, oh, this looks like an insect body or something. It reminds you of something, but it doesn't quite solidify into that. I like it to just kind of be a generalized perception of things. Another thing is these curves are based on my body, like this, my arm, my wrist. So I like that aspect of my body in the pictures, especially, like you can make circles like this or based on radiuses of your arms, less twisting. And so they have that kind of scale, I guess, human scale to them, Each one of these lines that you see, they're not sharp, they're fuzzy. That means they're blended. So that means, for example, if I'm painting this line right here, this brush has half black and half white on it. So when I paint this line, it blends both halves. And then a lot of times I'll paint it, then flip it over and do the opposite. So it's almost like this painting's been painted like 3 times, these lines. There's no hard edge. I don't think we see hard edges in real life. It's interesting when you first start out because a lot of times it's like so colorful. I spend the whole time subduing the color with black and white and gray. That's why even this had bright green under it. So you can see just a little hue of green coming through. So it's, it just adds a little more complexity. It's not just a dull gray. There's color layers underneath. I mix my own black because black out of the tube is just dead. There's nothing there. So this is about 4 or 5 different colors: alizarin, crimson, phthalo green, and There's some black in there and ultramarine blue. You know, just little things like that that you barely see. It's almost like an after image of color. So there's this feeling, this mysterious feeling that you're trying to express. And so when you feel it's expressed, you can walk away, you know, problem solved. But until that happens, you're just constantly working on it until you feel like it's expressed, or not expressed in terms of keeping it enigmatic and non-specific. It's like a playground for me every day, for me just to jump in and have fun and solve problems, create problems and solve them. I'm going to show some recent work at the Art Center at Duck Creek in East Hampton, which is a great venue for artists out here to show experimental and innovative work. And during that time, I'll give a talk about my work.